You know, um, you know that sound. You're standing at the front desk of like a local auto shop or maybe a really busy plumbing office, and the phone just starts ringing.
Oh yeah, the classic business soundtrack.
Right. And usually we think of a ringing business phone as the sound of money, right?
Honestly.
It's a lead. Somebody out there has a problem and they are, ready to pay to have it fixed.
But, I mean, flip the perspective for a second.
Okay.
What if the owner is under the hood of a car or elbow deep fixing a pipe in some dark basement, and they literally physically cannot get to the receiver?
Oh, that's incredibly stressful just thinking about it.
Yes, suddenly that ringing isn't revenue at all. It's an active liability. Because every single second it rings, a potential customer is inching closer to just hanging up and calling a competitor.
That ringing phone is basically a leak in the bucket. And, well, today we are looking at a stack of sources that proves the world is finally plugging that leak.
A very thick stack of sources, I might add.
Seriously. We've got everything from marketing platform tutorials and call center industry reports to literally academic research on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
That's a pretty wild mix.
It is. But our mission for this deep dive is to explore this massive shift happening right now in 2026. The shift from AI as just a tool, to something totally different.
Right, moving away from just the simple prompt box you type a question into.
Exactly. And moving to the birth of AI as an autonomous, fully functioning digital employee, we're talking about agentic AI and how it is fundamentally changing how work gets done.
Yeah.
Whether you're just trying to, book a local plumber or you're trying to literally save the planet.
And the defining characteristic of this shift really is autonomy.
Right.
We are finally moving away from systems that need a human to constantly steer the wheel and moving towards systems that can, perceive an environment, reason through a problem, and execute a multi-step solution entirely on their own.
Okay, let's unpack this by starting at the local level, because I think that's where you really feel it.
Definitely.
Why are everyday small service businesses turning to digital employees in the first place? When you look at the source materials, particularly the industry reports, it becomes painfully clear that the traditional front desk model is it's completely fracturing.
It's broken. I mean, the data shows the average small business owner wastes over 120 hours a year on pure administrative busy work.
Wow. Wait, 120 hours?
Yeah. Think about that in human terms. That is 3 entire work weeks just gone.
That's insane.
3 weeks a year spent not growing the business, not actually servicing clients, but just treading water with, like, data entry and scheduling.
Right.
And this administrative bottleneck leads directly to what the industry calls the missed call crisis.
The missed call crisis.
Yeah. A staggering 30% of inbound business calls go completely unanswered.
30%. I mean, that's almost a third of your potential revenue just echoing into the void.
And the penalty for missing those calls is severe because 80% of callers who hit a voicemail will never call that business back.
80%.
Yep. We live in a totally frictionless economy now. They don't leave a message. They just go back to Google, right, and click the very next name on the list.
Oh, completely. I do that all the time.
We all do. And when you consider that hiring a human receptionist to catch those calls costs upwards of $40,000 annually.
Yeah.
And they still need to sleep and, take lunch breaks and actually go home for the weekend.
How dare they?
Right.
Yeah.
But you start to see this massive, costly operational gap.
So businesses are turning to these 2026 era AI agents, and we really need to define what that actually looks like today because I think a lot of people still have PTSD from the clunky 2023 chatbots.
Oh, the worst.
The ones with those rigid pre-programmed if-then scripts where you had to press 1 for sales and 2 for support.
And it never actually understood your problem?
Yeah.
Yeah, those old systems were basically just interactive phone trees.
Mm.
But the new agentic systems are fundamentally different because they operate with what's called zero latency.
Meaning they process and reply in milliseconds, right? There's no awkward 3-second pause while the computer, quote-unquote, thinks.
Exactly, milliseconds. So to the person calling, the risk...
And no human touched that interaction at all.
Well, what's fascinating here is the underlying mechanics of that interaction. That's what makes it revolutionary. The AI isn't just listening for keywords anymore.
Right.
It's extracting the caller's intent and autonomously executing a whole multi-step workflow.
Behind the scenes.
Exactly. Behind the scenes, it's checking the calendar API, which is just, the digital bridge that lets 2 pieces of software talk to each other.
Sure.
It validates the service area by pinging a map database with the ZIP code, categorizes the urgency of the problem, and then writes all of this contextual data directly back into the company's CRM.
Their central customer database.
Yep. It's essentially acting as the ultimate triage layer.
But, it's one thing to let an AI parse a ZIP code and schedule a boiler repair. It is a completely different thing to trust it with actual human emotion.
That's the real test.
Yeah, because if a digital employee is taking these calls, how do actual flesh and blood customers feel about pouring their stress out to a machine? A broken heater in a snowstorm is a really vulnerable moment. Do people actually accept this?
It is the defining hurdle for this technology. And the data from NoJitter gives us a really nuanced look at consumer psychology here.
Okay.
They found that 59.1% of consumers are actually willing to give an AI voice agent a chance to solve their issue.
Oh, really? That's higher than I thought.
It is, but that willingness is entirely conditional.
Yeah.
They will only engage if they know there's an immediate escape hatch to a human being.
Ah, so it's all about control. If you trap me in an AI maze, I panic. But if I know I can just press 0 and get a real person, I'll let the AI try to help me first.
Exactly. Without that escape hatch, trust evaporates instantly. The data shows that 30% of callers will bypass the AI the second they connect, just demanding a human.
Right.
And 11% will just hang up in frustration the moment they detect a synthetic voice. So you absolutely have to give the user agency.
Which brings us to a case study that genuinely blew my mind. We are talking about eHealth and their deployment of an AI voice agent named Alice.
Oh, this one is fascinating.
Right, because this isn't just scheduling an oil change. This is Medicare Advantage enrollment.
Very complex.
Super complex, it is highly sensitive, and the demographics skew older. They deployed Alice to handle after-hours triage for these enrollees, and the result. Alice received a 77% exceptional satisfaction rating from the callers.
I mean, in the healthcare sector, a 77% exceptional rating is almost unheard of, even for top-tier human representatives.
Totally.
But the metric that really forces us to rethink everything is the conversion rate. Alice actually achieved a 27% higher purchase rate than the human screeners working the exact same leads.
Okay, I have to push back on this a little bit because I found this detail incredibly unsettling.
Uh-oh.
Are we really saying a piece of code got a 27% higher purchase rate than a human being because the machine was somehow more empathetic?
It sounds wild.
It sounds incredibly dystopian. Or, I don't know, does it just expose how broken and overworked our human customer service systems are?
I think it's the latter. It exposes the massive friction inherent in modern call centers. Because the secret to Alice's success isn't that she magically possesses actual human empathy.
Right.
It's that she is programmed for infinite patience.
Ah.
Think about human agents, particularly during the chaos of peak Medicare enrollment season. They are chained to performance metrics. They have strict average handle times.
They're constantly watching the clock.
Exactly. They are stressed, they are rushed, and that anxiety absolutely bleeds into the conversation. Alice never rushes the caller. She has literally nowhere else to be.
And the sources mentioned a specific interaction that perfectly illustrates this.
Yeah.
If an elderly beneficiary calls in and happens to mention that their spouse recently passed away.
A really tough situation.
Yeah, and a rushed human agent might clumsily offer condolences while just trying to hurry them along to the next form field. But Alice is programmed to gracefully handle that sensitive moment.
How so?
Well, she responds with measured compassion, right? She pauses to actually let the caller breathe. And then she autonomously logs into the system to remove the deceased spouse from future outreach lists, so the caller is never triggered by a piece of junk mail again.
That is just brilliant. And by the time Alice facilitates the human-in-the-loop handoff,
which is when they transfer to a real person.
right, transferring that caller to a licensed human agent to finalize the insurance details. By the time that happens, the live agent receives a fully populated summary of everything that was just discussed.
That's so helpful.
Yeah, so the human doesn't have to ruin the rapport by asking, can I get your account number or what's your address? The AI has absorbed all that administrative friction.
So the human agent gets to step in and focus purely on the complex problem solving.
Exactly. And the genuine emotional connection that humans actually excel at.
Okay, I can definitely see how powerful that is. But let's ground this in reality for a second, because if I'm a business owner listening to this and I want to hire an infinitely patient digital employee like Alice, I imagine I can't just plug her into the wall.
Definitely not.
How do businesses actually integrate these systems without tearing their existing operations apart?
Well, moving from the theory of an autonomous agent to the daily execution is where the vast majority of companies stumble.
Makes sense.
Let's look at the ROI reality and what the sources refer to as the onboarding fallacy.
The onboarding fallacy.
Yeah, so data from Rise AI tracks businesses that switch to AI ad management tools. The upside is undeniable. These companies see an average 3.8x return on their investment in just 6 weeks.
Whoa.
Right, alongside an 85% reduction in manual time spent on tasks.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because let's translate that 85% reduction into the human experience. Imagine taking your standard 40-hour work week, and someone tells you that 34 of those hours, the tedious data entry, the endless report pulling, the calendar Tetris.
The worst parts of the job.
Right. Imagine all of that is just gone, handled entirely by a machine. It's staggering.
It is staggering, but those numbers come with a massive warning label.
Oh!
Yeah, the absolute biggest mistake businesses make is something called the overnight flip.
The overnight flip.
They see the potential, they purchase the AI integration, and they immediately hand over all their operations or ad budgets to the machine on day one.
Just giving it the keys to the kingdom.
Exactly. And doing this actually destroys your ROI by 40 to 60%.
Okay, so if you can't just flip a switch, I imagine this looks a lot more like onboarding a human intern.
Very much so.
Because you wouldn't hire a brand new marketing director, walk them to their desk on a Monday and say, okay, execute $1 million ad campaign by tomorrow, without ever explaining your company's history or target audience. You have to let them shadow you first.
That is the perfect analogy. AI is not static software you simply install. It is a dynamic nervous system that you have to train.
Right.
AI algorithms require deep historical context to function autonomously. The sources note they generally require 30 to 90 days of your historical business data just to understand your baseline metrics.
Just to get a feel for the place.
Exactly. And that has to be followed by a 2 to 4 week learning period where the AI runs small tests, analyzes the failures, and optimizes its approach.
Which means businesses have to approach this with a massive amount of discipline.
Absolutely.
The sources outline a measured 4-phase rollout. You don't just dump everything on the AI. You start with phase 1,
That's right.
baseline measurement.
Right.
Then you move to phase 2. A gradual rollout, maybe giving the AI 25% of your ad campaigns or a fraction of your call volume.
Just dipping a toe in.
Exactly. And once it proves itself, you hit phase 3,
Right.
activating the advanced autonomous features. And only then do you reach phase 4. Shifting your human workforce to strategic focus.
And the ultimate value proposition here isn't just replacing a $40,000 receptionist to save a salary.
Right, it's bigger than that.
It's about reallocation. By absorbing the tedious execution, the AI frees up your human marketing managers, giving them back those 10 to 15 hours a week.
So they can actually think.
Yes. So they can focus entirely on high-level strategy, creative direction, and actual growth initiatives. You aren't buying software. You are buying back your team's cognitive bandwidth.
Which perfectly sets up the most ambitious part of our deep dive. We've seen how freeing up cognitive bandwidth works for like a local HVAC business, or how it helps manage ad budgets and Medicare triage.
Yeah.
But what happens when we unleash these autonomous digital employees on the largest, most complex global problems humanity faces?
Now, this is the leap from local business efficiency to global survival. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the academic research in our stack focuses on applying agentic AI to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals,
commonly known as the SDGs. And the reality check provided in the research is pretty grim. Currently, only 17% of the UN's SDG targets are on track.
Only 17%.
Yeah. We are fundamentally failing on a global level to hit our targets for massive existential challenges like poverty reduction, climate resilience, and financial inclusion.
And the reason for that failure isn't a lack of desire. It's a logistics failure.
Interesting.
The sheer scale of global data, the supply chain bottlenecks, and the complexity of coordinating international resources. It's simply beyond human capacity to manage in real time.
It's just too much information.
Far too much. And this is exactly where agentic AI, specifically a framework called multi-agent systems, can intervene.
This concept of multi-agent systems is wild to me. It's not just a single, incredibly smart AI trying to solve poverty. It's a team.
A literal team of bots.
Yeah. I like to think of it like a commercial kitchen. You have a generalist AI, which acts like the executive chef or the expediter.
Okay, I like this.
So you feed it a massive global problem, let's say optimizing mobile banking deployment for rural, unbanked communities. The generalist AI doesn't solve it directly.
Right.
It autonomously researches the problem, breaks it down into a dozen highly specific subtasks, and then delegates those tasks to a team of specialist AI models. And they act like the sous chefs at their individual stations.
And the mechanism of how they collaborate is fascinating.
Yeah.
The generalist essentially acts as a prompt engineer for the specialists.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it generates highly specific parameters and constraints, feeds them to the individual agents, and they all go to work in parallel.
Right at the same time.
Yep. So one specialist AI might be analyzing satellite imagery to map physical infrastructure. Another is simultaneously processing socioeconomic survey data.
Oh, I see.
And a third is cross-referencing local financial regulations.
And here is where the autonomy truly shines. Dynamic replanning.
This is key.
Right, because if one of those sous chefs hits a wall, say the AI pulling satellite data realizes the imagery for a specific region is obscured by cloud cover.
It happens.
It doesn't just crash the whole program and wait for a human to fix the code. The generalist AI reads that failure, rewrites the parameters, and immediately prompts a different specialist AI to pull drone data or ground sensor data instead. It pivots in milliseconds.
The potential to rapidly scale solutions for the SDGs using this technology is unprecedented.
It's incredible.
However, deploying autonomous black box systems on a global scale triggers massive societal anxieties.
Of course.
And the sources included a fascinating global survey of 316 people regarding these ethical concerns. What's revealing is how perfectly the data maps the specific fears of different global regions.
It is a fascinating breakdown. Like in the US, the UK, Germany, and Saudi Arabia, the top ethical concern regarding global AI deployment is algorithmic bias.
Makes sense for those regions.
Right. These populations are terrified that an autonomous system managing resources will simply encode and reinforce existing human prejudices at scale.
But look at India, Canada, and Australia. Their primary concern wasn't bias. It was the loss of human control. Yeah, it's the fear of the machine making critical, irreversible decisions about resource allocation without any human veto power.
And then, when you poll developing economies, their primary fear was entirely different from the West.
What was it?
Their biggest concern is unequal access.
Right.
They look at this technology and worry that these powerful, world-optimizing multi-agent systems will just be hoarded by wealthy nations.
Which is a valid fear.
Very valid, ultimately widening the technology gap and exacerbating the exact inequalities the SDGs are supposed to fix.
It is a perfect storm of valid anxieties.
Yeah.
But there is another layer to this, a massive paradox hidden in the infrastructure of the AI itself.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to address it if we were talking about sustainability.
Yes, the compute power paradox. I honestly couldn't shake this while reading the research. The sources make it undeniably clear that we desperately need the advanced cognitive reasoning of these AI models to solve environmental crises.
We do.
We need them to optimize global power grids and coordinate climate resilience responses.
But the mechanism of generating that cognitive reasoning is incredibly costly.
It's massive.
Massive LLMs, large language models, they don't just instantly pull an answer from a static database. Every time an agentic system reasons through a complex, dynamic problem, millions of parameters are firing across massive server farms.
Exactly. It requires vast amounts of electricity just to run the servers and millions of gallons of fresh water to cool the data centers.
Yeah.
So the obvious question is, are we burning the village to save it? How do we possibly reconcile the immense energy cost of running these AI models with the environmental sustainability goals they're supposedly trying to solve?
It is the defining paradox of the AI age, and the academic research tackles this head-on, concluding that the answer isn't to just abandon AI.
Because human logistics alone are already failing the SDGs.
Exactly. The answer is to legally and structurally demand robust ethical frameworks. Transparency, verifiable corporate accountability, and strict human-in-the-loop oversight.
Right.
These can no longer be treated as nice-to-have public relations features.
They have to be mandatory infrastructure.
Absolutely mandatory for public trust and for literal environmental survival. We have to design these neural architectures to be highly energy efficient.
Yeah.
And we must require the corporations deploying them to mathematically prove their net benefit.
Prove their work.
Exactly. If a multi-agent system is deployed to optimize a city's energy grid, the megawatt hours saved by the AI's optimizations must vastly, verifiably outweigh the megawatt hours consumed by the data center running the AI.
Wow. Well, we have covered an incredible amount of ground today, spanning from the, mundane frustrations of local business to the existential logistics of global survival.
It's been a journey.
It has. So let's distill this deep dive for you, the listener. What we are seeing across every single source, from the YouTube tutorials to the academic papers, is that AI has irreversibly evolved.
It really has.
It is no longer a prompt box that writes polite emails for you. It is a fully autonomous digital workforce.
And the applications scale from the micro to the macro, but the underlying mechanisms remain remarkably consistent.
Whether it's Jennifer the AI capturing a ZIP code to book a furnace repair during a snowstorm, or a multi-agent system dynamically replanning satellite data to fight global poverty.
It is all the same fundamental shift.
Yeah, but the rules of engagement for us humans haven't changed. Maximizing this technology requires rigorous human oversight, deeply structured onboarding, and verifiable efficiency.
This raises an important question for you to consider as you go about your week.
Yeah.
Look closely at your own daily workflow. What administrative bottlenecks are you currently tolerating? What tedious data entry, what gatekeeping tasks, what endless email chains are you still holding on to? What leaks do you have in your bucket that an infinitely patient, zero-latency digital employee could take off your plate right now?
That's a great question.
Because freeing yourself from those tasks is the only way to reclaim the deep strategic cognitive bandwidth that actually drives your work forward.
It's the ultimate productivity question. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to mull over. Something that builds on everything we've discussed today.
Okay.
We talked earlier about Alice, right, the Medicare voice agent, who achieved a massively higher purchase rate simply because she was infinitely patient and perfectly programmed to execute empathy without the stress of human performance metrics.
Right, the infinite patience.
As these AI agents become hyper-competent, as they literally become better, more patient listeners than most of the people in our lives, never interrupting, never judging, and always available.
It's a little eerie to think about.
Will we eventually cross a psychological threshold? Will we reach a point where we actively prefer interacting with machines over our fellow humans for all our daily services?
And if society does collectively decide we prefer the frictionless perfection of the machine, how does that change the fundamental nature of human connection?
If every time the phone rings, we expect a perfectly empathetic, zero-latency response, what happens when we have to deal with a real, flawed, stressed-out human being again? That ringing phone might stop being a leak in the bucket, but it might just change the shape of the bucket entirely.
Something to carefully consider the next time you hear your phone ring.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.